All right, welcome back. Our final segment of this podcast is college basketball. And last night we saw the Bradley Braves pull away from Jackson State at home for an 83-60 victory. I know I talked to you about this. I've been actually a little more impressed with this Bradley offense of late. Playing good. They're not necessarily playing great competition, but even though you're not playing great competition, to see the ball go in the basket that many times builds the confidence, helps you going forward for those bigger competitions. And I like what they did with the starting lineup, inserting Ville into the starting lineup. I think it made a difference, and you saw it in the game last night.
Yeah, I think we were texting about this the other night. Like I said, don't be surprised to see Ville finish the year second in minutes on the team per game, because he's a kind of guy that like he plays good defense. I mean, he doesn't play great defense, but he plays good defense. He's got a high IQ. He does a lot of things right out there. Makes some turnovers, but we push the pace when you want to run. That's going to happen. But like, as long as he doesn't stay in foul trouble, like he's a guy that can play a lot of minutes. He's a knockdown shooter, plays decent defense, is smart out there. I think it gives you. I think he gives you more than Danye does, because if when you have Terry out there who can guard the other team's best player, you have Ville can shoot the ball better than Danye. I think it gives that offense another dimension. And he played 29 minutes last night. Him and Eli and Terry played 29 minutes, and Shawnee's played 28. So it seems like that's the lineup that Wardle's really liking being out there, and then rotating Ari in with Jay Sean and Rink. But yeah, I think Ville. I mean, he shot 50% from the field last night. Like he's given them just another thing that defenses have to guard. And now it's not just for 10 minutes off the bench; it's 30 minutes every possession. You have to know where he's at.
Yeah, and I think the thing too with Danye, it kind of sucks for him because he's kind of the odd man out this year. You've got more of the transfers coming in. VA, like you mentioned, shot pretty well last night. Beginning of the year last year, he didn't shoot too well, and then he really came on as Valley Play got it going. And then, another aspect too that Danye brought to the team that we don't necessarily need from him anymore with these new guys is the fact he could handle the ball and he could alleviate some of that pressure from Darryl Brown. Now you've got, like you mentioned, Terry Nolan, who can bring the ball up. You've got Sean East, who's been very good with the ball in his hands, creating plays for other people. So you don't necessarily need him for a lot of those aspects that we used him for last year. So I think it is better for him to come off the bench because he does bring that energy, kind of provides a spark for you. So I think his role is better suited on the bench.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it's funny because you look at, you kind of feel for him a little bit, but then you get look and you're like, man, the second unit that we got, Kev, Danye, the odd man out in either Rink or Jay Sean, whoever doesn't go in first for Ari, like, you get kind of thinking, you're like, wow, and then two of the starters that stay in, you're like, man, like that's a really good rotation second unit. So you get Kev and you get Danny to buy into that. Hey man, you're gonna be the leaders of the second unit, and that's not saying you can't play late in the game down the stretch. Like Danny, Kev, you're comfortable with those guys being out there on the court if someone's in foul trouble or they have the hot hand. So I mean, yeah, you kind of feel for them, but you're also like, man, like you can still put up your numbers in that second unit because that second unit is going to be good. But you mentioned earlier just seeing the ball go in. You like what you're seeing from the offense. This is what this team needs, and that's in a normal year. I think we'd be seeing this kind of play earlier on, but like you have three guys who did not play basketball last year. Like they practiced. Kev, Terry, and Rink. They practiced, but they didn't play a game last year. So you're talking a full year of not playing games. Now you're seeing now you're seeing their leg get underneath them. Now you're seeing them get back into basketball shape. Like Rink took the longest to get there, also because his was an injury. But it's like now you're starting to see things the way Wardle thought they were going to be. Now you're starting to see these guys get back into rhythm, back into their basketball bodies, and it's great to see now, because now you're seeing this team with where we thought it could be offensively.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And excuse me, one sec. Sorry. But yeah, I agree with you. I think we're starting to finally see where they can be offensively as a team, as a unit. It's really nice to see, because the last couple of years, while Bradley's been competitive, it's been more of a grinded out uh, defensive style, not necessarily the prettiest basketball on offense. Now you're seeing top 10 plays almost every game. You're seeing a lot of good movement. You're seeing a lot of good passing, a lot of things that complement and good complementary basketball on the offensive side. And it's not just one guy trying to do a lot or two guys trying to do a lot. It's the whole team, and I think that makes us dangerous as a mid-major, as not necessarily a powerhouse team, because when you're able to beat a team multiple different ways, it makes it that much harder to prepare for.
Yeah, and I think what you're seeing now is, like, last year they had to rely more on defensively because they didn't quite have everything that they wanted offensively to fit what Wardle wanted to do. Now you're seeing, hey, we got, it's not just DB or a second guy that can bring the ball up. It's not just Nate that can knock down shots coming off the screens. It's like now it's like, man, we got three guys that can bring the ball up. We got four guys that can come off screens and knock down shots. We got two guys that can play inside out. Like you have more options of guys that can make these plays. And I think now it's like, now you're starting to see the kind of guys Wardle wants to bring in here. You're starting to see the way he wants to play, the way he wants to recruit. And it's exciting, because I think now you look at it and you say, man, like we got 2 more years after, like we got this year and next year of Terry Nolan. He's gonna get better. We got this year and 2 more years after that of Sean East. You're seeing these guys put it together now, and you're saying we still got more. And then not to mention, maybe the best player on the court in 2 years from now, even with all these guys out there, is in high school right now, who's signed as a recruit, in Connor Hickman. It's just, you're starting to see things kind of really come into place, and it's a really fun thing to see. They're a fun team to watch offensively, and they're still playing good defense too. Like that's the thing. Like the South Dakota State game was an outlier, but like they have played really good defense.
Well, yeah, that South Dakota State game is an outlier. I mean, they shot 10 to 12 from three in the second half. And a lot of those shots weren't necessarily open shots. It's, they were contested. They were getting out there doing good things. So it was really one of those games where it's like, hey, they just outplayed us. They outshot us. Like, there's not much we could have done to win that game. They just had a better game than us. So it really was an outlier, and we now look forward to this next game Bradley has against Miami, Ohio, who's in the MAC. Not a great team, but also not a team to really sleep on and try and look over as they prepare for Mizzou next Tuesday.
Yeah, I mean, Miami, Ohio beat Bradley last year. They weren't a great team last year. They beat Bradley at Miami, Ohio. I think it's another game where Bradley can show what they can do. They should score 80 points. They should be able to hold Miami, Ohio to under 65, 70. But yeah, I think the biggest thing is Bradley wants this matchup against Missouri. They want to go play Missouri, and it's you can't overlook that, because Bradley can still do what they want to do this year if they beat Miami of Ohio and win those kind of games that they're supposed to win. but yeah, I think it's going to be a game that I'm excited to watch because I think it's another chance for these guys to have a great offensive game because Miami Ohio is not a great team.
Mhm. Yeah, to just build more of that confidence going forward. One guy we haven't mentioned that I really like, I've said this a couple times, but Deshaun Henry, I just like the way he plays. He's a hustle guy. He's not necessarily the best player on the court when he's out there, but he hustles and he provides you hard minutes every minute he's out there. So I think while he might not be the best player, sometimes he's the most important player because he creates havoc on defense. He hustles for those loose balls. Just the little things that he does, I think, go a long way sometimes for that Bradley team.
Yeah, I was listening to my drive home from work on Thursday. I was listening to the Peoria ESPN station, and the guy was talking about Jay Sean Henry and said he could actually be the most efficient player in the country because he only plays 20 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
and he's averaging like basically almost a double double in 20 minutes. Not to mention I think he averages probably like a block or two a game.
Yeah.
He like you watch him play and he hustles. He's everywhere. So it's like he could like averaging a double double in 20 minutes of game time is incredible. Like he could be like the most efficient player in the country when you look at how many minutes he plays and what he does in those minutes.
Yeah, and they really it seems like they trust him down the stretch too, because he's usually, if it's a tight game, he's usually in the game. So
Yeah,
that's gotta
I
be
mean
good.
he's like the ultimate know your role, work at your role, perfect your role kind of guy, which is what Wardle, like, when I was a manager, like that's what Wardle preaches is know your job, do your job. And like that's Jay Sean Henry to a T. He knows he's a hustle guy. He knows he's a rebounder. He knows he's a screen setter. When he's open, he'll shoot it. But like he knows his role is diving to the basket, look for a lob, get the ball. Like he knows his post moves. He knows his strengths. He knows his weaknesses. And yeah, I mean you're right. He's a guy that like we saw even last year down the stretch in some of those games. He was in there, and I think back to my senior year when they played Loyola down in the semifinals. He was on the floor on that last possession and was the one who dove on the floor to here. Like I remember talking to him. It was like, "Why'd you dive on the floor?" He said, My thought was I'm gonna just lay on the ball, just cover up the ball like you're landing on a football. Like like as a freshman, he was out there in that big of a game because we trusted him to get the rebound, and that's what he did.
Yeah, I just think it speaks a lot on his character too, and just the type of person he probably is.
He's a cool
Uh,
guy. He's a great kid, great guy.
yeah,
Got that Canadian nice way about him.
yeah. We'll look into more of an overall look at the Valley so far. Right now, we've got three undefeated teams. Missouri State just played their first game, so technically they are undefeated, as they are 1-0. We've got Drake up there at 7-0 so far, and they've been a covering machine as well. Like I mentioned, I think the first time we talked basketball last year, they were the best team against the spread in the entire country at 24-7-1. They've covered every single game so far. So they only continue to build on that record from last year. Southern Illinois, another team that's been pretty impressive, 5-0. They've done some really good things. They've played very sound defensively. I think what surprised me a little is some of their offensive outputs that I've seen. I know the SEMO game, their first of the year, went to overtime, but they still scored 87. Murray State, they put up 70. North Dakota yesterday, they put up 85. So it seems like they're doing better things offensively than they were last year. Probably just because your two better players are a year older, a little more experience behind them. So their offense is going to be a little more clean, in my opinion, just getting more experience from those guys. But I like what I've seen from both them and Drake. I still don't think you can count out Northern Iowa, even though their record isn't great. still think they're a good team even without AJ Green. They'll be able to spread the ball out a little more. Valpo, like you mentioned, I think last week, they're still a tough team. Loyola lost a tough one to Wisconsin. They also lost a tough one today to Richmond. So they're another team. And like we mentioned, to start the year, this is, again, a deep conference. And there's not many easy outs in the Valley this year.
Yeah, I'll start with Northern Iowa because I think that's the most significant news. AJ Green being out for the year, but we've talked. We both, I've talked. I respect the hell out of Ben Jacobson. I think he's a great coach. You've said that too. You think he's a great coach. So I think that they'll be okay. They'll be right there, top 4 team at the end of the year, probably in the Valley. Southern Illinois, I've watched a couple of their games. They're averaging 86 points a game. I mean, that's obviously that's a little bit skewed because they've only played 5 games and they went to double overtime in the one. But they're averaging 17 and a half assists per game. They're shooting 51% from the field, almost 50% from the 3-point line. They're shooting it very efficiently. I don't know if that's just the teams they played or whatever, but them and Drake, you hit on Drake. You like what you're seeing from them. They're 7-0 against the spread as well. But they're another team. They're averaging almost 85 points a game. They're shooting it. They're shooting 40% from the 3, 53% from the field. They're shooting it very, very efficiently, and that's what you're seeing out of Southern and Drake in these early games, shooting it really well. Again, maybe the competition hasn't quite been the best, but Loyola, I like what I've seen from Loyola simply because they've been able to schedule these good games. They've played Wisconsin. They have played Richmond. They've played some good schools, and that always seems to matter down the stretch. They played a good UIC team at UIC as well, and won there. So I think it's going to be a good year for the Valley. I think the Valley is very deep. I think it doesn't help obviously that the preseason player of the year is out in AJ Green, but I think when you look, I think you say Drake and Southern Illinois, 2 teams that you didn't quite know how they were going to come out and play this year based on what they lost last year, based on everything like that. They'd be middle of the pack, and they're sitting there a combined 12-0, basically the 2 best offensive teams early in the year. It's pretty impressive, and I think conference play this year is going to be very, very interesting with the 2 games in 2 days thing, the no home and homes. Because I think if you have to go to Drake for 2 games, you have to go to Southern Illinois for 2 games. I think that's going to be a lot more difficult to get a road win at a place like that this year than it has been in past years.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see, like you mentioned, how not the home and home, but the 2 games in 2 days will play out. It'll be really interesting because a lot of these teams are tough teams, and I can only imagine playing them back to back what that will be like. It's only going to increase how tough it is to beat some of these teams, especially if you go on the road. Let's say you go on the road to Southern Illinois, you win the first one, the second one they might crush you, just because that's the type of team they are and type of conference it is. So it's definitely going to be an interesting conference to watch from top to bottom, really, minus probably Evansville and boys from Normal. But other than that, it would probably be a pretty good conference.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the season. I think you have a chance to, Bradley playing Drake or Bradley playing Loyola. You have a chance to see some really, really good games, some really competitive, close games. Yeah, I think it'll be good. I think every win this year in the Valley is going to be a tough fought win, with, like you said, maybe the exception of a handful of games. should we talk about the biggest game of the year that's being played tomorrow?
Yeah, we'll talk about that real quick.
All right, real quick, I just want to throw out there because I think it's 1 versus 3 at 11 a.m. So don't know how I'm gonna exactly get this game on with the Iowa State game, but I think like I'm not looking forward more like I'm not looking more towards this game than I am some of the football games. But like, man, this game is gonna be really, really good.
Yeah, I think you're going to find out a lot about both teams. Gonzaga, props to them. I mean, they've gone out there and scheduled. They've got a game coming up with Virginia this coming week as well. They were supposed to play Baylor as well. That got postponed. It sounds like they're trying to make it up in the future. So props to them for doing the most with what they can. But yeah, I think we'll find out a lot about both teams, both high powered offenses. Got some really talented players on both teams. You've got Luka Garza on one side, obviously. You've got Timmy on the other, who can probably match with him better than most people can in the country. And then you've got the guards as well. Iowa is quietly one of the better shooting teams in the country. I think people don't really talk about that enough. They talk too much about Luka Garza, but you get a lot in support from him, especially shooting wise. So that'll be something to watch. The guard play, I think, will probably determine this because you've got two bigs in Timmy and Garza who play pretty similar styles. While I think Garza's the better player, I think they kind of cancel each other out because you're going to get a decent amount of production from both of them. So I really think it's going to be on the guards. You've got a young guard at Gonzaga leading the charge, and you've got an experienced guard at Iowa leading the charge. So I think that's going to be a key to watch out for.
Yeah, Timmy's going to be the best big that Garza's played up to this point. Probably going to be the best or second best big man, maybe outside of Coburn from Illinois. Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's like you watch Iowa, like they don't have to have Garza scoring to be a good team. They go through him because he's such a focus of that offense. But like he draws so much attention, but they can shoot the ball so well from the outside that they don't need him to be this like 30-point scorer every game. Like they just need him to draw that attention because they have four guys around him that can shoot the ball at a very, very high clip. But yeah, I think the guard play is important, but I also think I think it's just going to come down to which team can play 40 minutes of basketball, because this is going to be a game that you can't go 3 or 4 minutes of a scoring drought. You can't turn the ball over 3 or 4 straight possessions. Like you have to play 40 minutes of basketball because the other team is going to play 40 minutes of basketball. I think it's just I think it's just going to come down to whatever team can put it together for the longest period of time and just play good basketball. Because Iowa turns it over 3 possessions in a row. Gonzaga can go down and get 6 quick points and and make a 2-point lead into an 8-point lead. And so yeah, I think it's gonna be a really, really good game. I mean, I'm excited to watch it. I wish it was on like a Tuesday night or something, so it was like the biggest thing and the only thing on. But yeah, it's gonna be a good game.
Yeah, I agree with you there. It's great analysis of what's going to happen too. I think in the game, you really can't go on a drought in this game. Like we said, I mean, two high-powered offenses. So if you fall asleep for a minute or two, you're probably out of the game. Real quick, I just want to go through. Give me a couple games you're looking forward to on Saturday. Maybe a couple bigger name matchups, and then one kind of under the radar.
Yeah, I think the other big matchup is the other game featuring 2 ranked teams, Louisville and Wisconsin. I believe it's in Madison.
Mm-hmm.
Wisconsin's been an interesting team this year because, like, They lost to Marquette, and we don't really know what Marquette is this year, but they've like when they play their style of basketball, they are very tough to beat. Low scoring, game in the 50s, not a lot of like just anything happening. I haven't seen Louisville play too much this year. They're 4-0, but yeah, I'm excited for that game because it's the other game of ranked teams. I'd like to watch that one, and then the two games featuring the kind of the blue bloods. You have North Carolina, Kentucky. I like North Carolina. I know they've lost two games so far this year, but I think that like they can put it together. Like they have great big men. They have good guards. It's just a question of can they shoot at a high enough clip to to put pressure on the defense and not let them sag in and take away driving lanes and things like that. So I think I think that's another game I'm looking forward to. An under the radar game, I am going. There's a couple games I'm kind of excited to watch just from a standpoint of implications towards the Big 12 or the Valley. But I think I think I am going to go with Purdue and Notre Dame because Notre Dame has been kind of an up and down team. They've played well against kind of their lesser competition. They haven't played well, or I mean they played well for about 25, 30 minutes against the better competition. Like they played when they played Duke the other night, for example. They played well for kind of about half the game. But Purdue's kind of been the same. Like they've played well, they haven't played well. But I think this is a game where you're gonna see some good offense being ran. These are two experienced, good coach teams. I think it's just like it's a game that I'm excited to watch from just a basketball standpoint of good offense, good defense, just a good solid game. The other one also being Indiana Butler. Like I said earlier, I like Indiana. I think they're an interesting team, a good team. So those are two kind of under the radar games. They're not none of them are ranked. None of them are going to be on the big TV or the main TV. But I think those are going to be two good basketball games.
Yeah, I'll give a couple other games to keep an eye on. UCLA at Ohio State. I know UCLA lost to San Diego State. San Diego State lost today to BYU, but I think San Diego State's a very good team again this year, like they were last year. And I do think UCLA with Cronin will probably be at the top of that Pac-12, and they'll be a very good team. I think the Pac-12 is kind of underrated this year, but I think it'll get 5 to 6 teams into the tournament when it's all said and done because I think it's better than it's been in more recent years. Two games I'm kind of looking at that are a little under the radar. But the first one's Ole Miss at Dayton. I think that might be an interesting one. Ole Miss has played well to start the year. Dayton's played pretty well as well. Minus without Obi Toppin, they haven't really missed much. But obviously, it's going to hurt a little not having the Player of the Year on your team. Still a good game to look out and see two potential teams that could be in the conversation come March. Another one that I'm looking at has a mid-major that I really like going to a Power 5 school, and that is Western Kentucky at Alabama. You've got Western Kentucky, a very good power or mid-major team I've talked about on this podcast, and I know we've also texted about how good they are. They're a team I could easily see going to play the second weekend in March and surprising a lot of folks. They've got a lot of talent on that team. Alabama's getting things going with Gus, or no, not Gus, the Muss Bus over there in is that Arkansas? No, they've got Nate Oates, right? Okay. Yeah, they're getting things
Alabama,
going.
Arkansas's got
Muss Bus.
Muss.
Yeah, so they're getting things going, though, at Alabama. They're another team that's kind of middle of the pack, but trying to push towards that top of the pack in the SEC. So I think that's going to be another interesting game. And I'll move into games to watch on Sunday as well. I'll give you one game that I'm really looking forward to that I think most people will maybe try and sneak in watching. And I think that's Illinois at Rutgers. Rutgers surprised a lot of people last year. And the reason why they snuck up on a lot of people is because they played so well at home. They've got Illinois coming into the rack, and it's going to be interesting to see without the crowd there. Will it? They have quite the home court advantage as they did last year. Still a very good team. They return a lot of players. Illinois is a good team as we've seen so far this year. Yes, they've got 2 slip-ups, but two pretty good teams. So I think it's going to be a really tough test for both teams early in the Big Ten. In the Big Ten, I mean, it's going to be slugfest after slugfest in that conference this year. Top to bottom, it's very good. You don't really get any days off in that conference. So I think it'll be an interesting test for both teams. First game, the conference slate. And I'll give you another kind of under the radar game that we're looking at. We mentioned this before we actually went live. SLU at Minnesota. SLU's coming off a big win against North Carolina State. This is a good SLU team. We've talked about it a decent amount. They're very experienced. They've got a good win already against LSU. This could be another good win to build that resume, help them out. They actually had a game canceled. I think it was last weekend. I know I read it or heard about it in the local radios here in St. Louis. They had a game canceled. They were actually reaching out to Kansas, to some bigger name programs. Hey, play us. And they were like, no, we don't want to play you guys because you guys have the opportunity to beat us, and it doesn't really benefit us if we go in and beat you guys. So they're definitely a team I'd watch out for out of the A-10. I'm very high on the A-10, as I've stated. Wetzel, you got any games you're looking at for Sunday?
Creighton, UConn, kind of stands out. Ranked team going on the road. UConn's 3-0, but you know they're I think not as good as Creighton, but just ranked team going on the road. Oklahoma State against Texas. I like what I've seen from Texas. I think they're a very good team this year. But Oklahoma State, obviously, Cade Cunningham. I think that could be a good game. Kind of an under-the-radar game. Marquette and Xavier, a big team of 2 traditional Big East schools. I'm kind of early. I don't know what Marquette is, but they're 7 wins on the. They've got some decent wins on the year. Bradley at Cincinnati, Oklahoma at home. So looking forward to that game. And then the last one that I like, the last game, that 7:30 St. Louis Minnesota game. I know you hit on it. You're looking forward to that one too. This St. Louis team, man, like they've looked really impressive. This beginning of this year, they've I don't know if they have really any like huge wins, but another chance for them to beat another Power 5 school. They beat NC State last couple of days ago. I think that game's a great game to turn on and watch because I don't think Minnesota's. I mean, they just got blown out by Illinois, but I think St. Louis has a chance to get a quality road win against a team in Minnesota that probably won't be that high up in the Big Ten rankings, but still a chance for them to earn a Power 5 road win against a decent team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you there. And one thing too with UConn, they've got one of the Hurley brothers as their head coach.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, no matter where the Hurleys coach, you can always count on their teams to play hard and play a full 40 minutes. So especially going on the road to play one of them, you're going to get a decent test. While they might not have the players yet that he wants at UConn, they're going to give 100% effort and could cause problems for Creighton.
Yeah, I mean, I like what I've seen from Creighton. They're another team that seems to score about 90 points a game like Iowa does, but I don't know. I don't know if we've seen enough from UConn to really think that they're going to stay in this game. If there was a home crowd there, if there's some sort of home court advantage, probably it'd be a little bit different. But yeah, I mean I get what you're saying. It's hurt. It seems like they're like a tough nosed defensive gritty team. So, but yeah, I mean, there's some really good basketball games coming up this weekend and early into next week that I'm excited to watch. And we'll get Bradley again on Saturday, and then a big matchup for them on Tuesday at Missouri. And yeah, I'm excited for the upcoming games.
Yeah, if you guys follow us on Twitter at @from_knows, we'll definitely probably get some previews talking before that Bradley game. We might drop some videos on Twitter just to preview and give you a better understanding going into that Mizzou game. Also, just follow us as we make daily picks on there and other things. Point out some keys to the game for some of these bigger basketball games. Thanks for tuning in, though, this week, guys, and we look forward to seeing you guys next week.